The purpose of our project is to give the user a predicted grade value so that they can determine if they need to improve or not. This will be an option for them to assess their academic performance, and it will give them feedback on how to improve their grade.
Each member of our team has a direct user they've been interviewing throughout the entire project. Altogether, we have 2 male and 2 female students who've been providing feedback to us. These individuals are all first-year engineering students and can use our project for their academic performance.
Our GUI has high-level logic flow. Everything is based on the one variable that you input originally, which is your current average of your exam scores. Once you input the exam scores, the GUI gets a base variable that is then used and manipulated throughout the GUI, and is passed to each GUI in succession and then is either added or subtracted based on their answers to the next questions. So by the end, they will have a grade range between an A and an F.
For our GUI, it starts with the direct user importing their average grades on all the exams, and we use that as a baseline grade. And then throughout the GUI, we ask for different inputs using push buttons, radio buttons, and slider bars. And then based off of what the direct user puts into that, it updates the grade that they initially put in, and then at the end it outputs the grade after it's been altered by the different inputs.
Okay, so first thing we have to do is type in the name of the GUI. Alright, as soon as it shows up, you can either start the GUI or go to the citations page. We'll bring you to our citations page that'll show our sources that we used throughout the project. Click the home button to go back and start to begin the GUI. First thing you need to do is enter the average of your current exam scores, and based on this you'll either have to answer more or less questions. So we'll enter a pretty bad score so that we can show you all the questions. So we'll add a 70 in there. Notice the next button doesn't appear until after you press enter. And now it just asks you whether you use a tutor, and we use radio buttons to say either yes or no. So we'll say yes, they do use a tutor. And now we have a set of 5 push buttons to indicate how often the user asks for help. So if they have a pretty bad grade, they're probably going to ask for help quite a bit. So now we have a slider bar to indicate how confident the user is about the course. We can either use the slider bar to slide the value, and the value will appear in the edit text box, or we can enter a value directly in the text box, press enter, and it'll position the slider bar there, and that value will be saved. Now we have another slider bar that does the same thing, stress levels. If they're not doing too well, they're probably going to be pretty stressed. So looks good. Again, we have just 5 push buttons to indicate how often the user attends class. Now we have a set of radio buttons for how far ahead the user likes to complete homework assignments. And for the last 3, a tip box will appear on the side here, giving you tips on, hey, you should probably get your homework done sooner or at all, in the case of choosing rarely doing homework. And in the top 2, there is no tips because you're doing just fine with your homework at that point. I'll move on. Now we need to, with an edit text box, we input the hours of studying we do per week. So let's just say, and depending on how much you input, a little text box will pop up saying whether you're below, at, or above the recommended number of hours. So 2 is obviously very low, 6 is around the recommended hours, and something like 10 would be way above the recommended number of hours. So we'll put in 5. Now users asked how difficult they find the course. 5 push buttons again, so very simple. And after that, you should get a projected grade. Show your projected grade on the left in a big letter and a little message here to the right that should explain your grade a little. For example, we got a C, so it says you should try to improve your performance in this course if you want to receive a better grade. Okay. And then we can press the home button, and it will bring us back to the home. And if we want to close at any time, we can press the X in the corner.
For the exam GUI, the user will enter their average of their current exam scores. Based upon what the grade they enter, it will go to a certain set of questions. To proceed, the user will press the next button, and it will go to the next slide. For the tutor GUI, the user will be asked if they use a tutor. If they press the yes button, their grade will improve. If they press the no button, then their grade will stay the same. The user won't be shown the next button until they press a button. For the help GUI, the user will be asked, how often do you ask for help? The user will be presented with 5 choices, and each choice will affect the grade differently. The user won't be shown the next button until they make a choice. Once they press the next button, it will proceed to the next GUI. If they press the home button, it will proceed to the home GUI. And if they press the back button, it will proceed to the previous GUI.
Okay, for my slider bars, it asks how confident you are about the course, and then it selects a value between 0 and 10, with 0 not being confident and 10 being confident. And you can either slide the slider bar from 0 to 10 and just gauge, or if you have like an actual number that you want, then you could enter, say, 5 into here, and it puts the slider bar at 5. And then based off of that, it either subtracts or adds to the current grade that you have. So if you're really confident about the course, then it adds to your current grade, and if you're not confident at all, then it subtracts. And then the stress levels pretty much does the exact same thing. You can either slide the slider bar or enter a value. And it does the same thing to our mathematical model. If you're really stressed out about the course, then they assume that you're not going to perform as well, so it subtracts from the grade. And if you're not stressed at all, then it adds to your grade.
For my individual GUIs, I ask with push buttons how often the student attends class, ranging from always to never or rarely. And notice that the next button is not available until they click one of the options. Also, the buttons highlight a darker color to let the direct user know which option they finally pick before proceeding. My next GUI is asking how often or how soon they like to complete their homework. And these first 2 radio options are considered preferable, so that's why there is no tip box, but the last 3, come with a tip box that will recommend how often you should do your homework, and it will change your grade based on the option that you pick. The last 3 typically subtract from the grade since performance tends to decrease.
Alright, for my first GUI, the user needs to input the amount of studying hours they do on any given week. And based on what they input, a message will be displayed letting them know where they're at study hours wise. So if they put in a low number, let's say 2, it'll tell them that they're below the recommended number of hours. If they put in a number like 6, that's at the recommended number of hours. And if they put in something like 10, they'll be above the recommended number of hours. Next we have 5 push buttons for the user to say how hard they find the course. So if they find the course incredibly easy, their grade will be boosted, and if they find the course almost impossible, their grade will be deducted. And if they find it just okay, their grade will be pretty much unchanged. Final GUI is an GUI that just displays the output of the manipulated variable that's been changed throughout the GUI, and it will display the letter grade on the left and then a short message on the right with feedback about their grade.